Welcome to today's training. Today we're going to be talking about group policy management. I know that before now we've discussed so much, to a particular extent when we're talking about group policy, what exactly the group policy does, and we've worked on some of the functionalities by applying group policies to some settings, that we've seen how it works when it comes to wallpapers, when it comes to file locations and all, and implementing some certain rules as well. But for today and tomorrow, which we're going to be bringing the Windows class to an end tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with group policy. All true, there are a lot of things to learn. Some of them is going to be a recap. Some of them is going to be an advance to what you've known before. But, it is important that we address it for you to understand what exactly you can do with group policy, to what extent and how is it applicable, and to which of the categories and how to implement it that we're going to be looking at. Now, when we're talking about group policy, at the same time, you'll be hearing something relating to local policy. There are different things, and today we're going to be looking at it. Now, either which of the policy that you've logged into, there are two categories to that. There are some policies that is related to computers. There are some policies that are related to users. So when you're creating your policy, you now have to determine what kind of policy are you creating? What is the policy going to be meant for? Is it going to be based on computers, or you want policies to be effective applying to users within the organization? Now, the kind of configuration that you want to work with will determine what kind of configuration to put into play. Now, like I said, when you're talking about group policy literally is a set of rules, that controls user accounts on what a user can do or what a user cannot do. You understand? And it is used to block certain things on the computer. So meaning that I have an account probably as a domain user, and I don't want all domain users to be able to either change time, or to be able to go to control panel, or to be able to change wallpaper settings. There are some certain configuration that you can do, and all those things takes place on the group policy, because it is only group policy that you can use to control how you want application to run, or how you want installation to control or call on your computer. It is through group policy that you can control the settings within a computer system. Okay, so group policy gives you that functionality. And when you're talking about group policy in Windows, right? Group policy in Windows is a feature that contains a varieties of advanced settings, okay, particularly for network administrator. So meaning that if I need to apply any settings within a corporate setting, I don't need to individually go to each of those computers before I can apply the settings. I can do that through GPO, and then I can apply it to all the users or all the computers within my organization. Okay, again, like I mentioned, is that we have another kind of group policy, which is called the local group policy. And what is all about? Local group policy can be used to adjust settings on a single computer, meaning that I have a single computer, the computer is not on the domain, or probably the computer is on the domain, but whatsoever changes I want to do it within the comfort of my own computer. Nothing outside extraordinary, nothing outside my computer, just my computer. So I can decide to say, okay, this is my computer. For every other person that logs into this account, apart from my own account, this and this is what I don't want them to be able to do. So you can set up a local policy and attach or apply it as applicable, but it's going to be only on a single machine, not on a corporate domain, meaning that you cannot extend the service outside your own particular computer. Now, group policy is not designed for home users. When I mean home users, we all know that when we're talking about operating system, we have different kind of operating system, right? We have the home edition, we have the professional, you have the enterprise versions, you have the ultimate, different kind of versions when it comes to operating system, either being Windows 7, either being Windows 10, either being Windows 8.1 or what have you, right? So it is not designed for home users. So when you're using home version of Windows 10, you will not have that functionality. Just the same way you cannot join a home computer to a domain within a corporate setting. So if you have a corporate network and your operating system on your computer is on home edition, you will not be able to join into the domain because it does not have that functionality. So like I said, a group policy is not designed for home users. It's only available for professionals, and depending on the operating system, Ultimate, then you're talking about enterprise version of operating system. So these operating systems are the operating systems that have the functionality for that to be able to come into being. So today, what we're going to be doing, when it comes to group policies, that we're going to be mapping folder, what we call folder mapping via GPO. Okay, I know we've done something relating to folders where we created a folder in one of our classes, and we have to select group of users and assign the link to them as a path, like a shared folder where it now shows on their profile. But today we're going to be doing it differently. Okay, we're going to be looking at something else. We're going to be looking at also having a private mapping, meaning that group of users, you want certain group of users to have access to a particular folder. We've done something relating to that, but this is going to be a little bit different. So you will notice that if you complement what you've known before with the settings that we're going to be configuring when it comes to folder mapping and private mapping, you'll be able to learn extraordinary from today's class. We'll also be looking at how exactly can we allow or disallow the use of control panel on a particular computer, meaning that I have my computer, or in a corporate settings, I don't want people to be able to go through control panel. When you want to go there, it's going to deny. So we'll see how settings can be applied to all users and how you can also allow administrator not to be impacted by this same role of disabling of account of control panel. Then we'll also be working on the same kind of configuration on how we can allow some set of users to have access to it. We'll also be working on having a custom wallpaper. And in one of our previous classes, we have a wallpaper which we apply across board. But today we'll be doing it differently. We're going to be configuring two wallpapers going to two different organizational units, meaning if I log in as a particular user being an administrator, the kind of background I see is going to be different from if I'm logging in as a domain user. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that, how you can apply wallpaper at a different level, within the organizational units or within the domain controller. We'll be looking at group policy objects. We're going to be looking at group policy backup, and we're going to be looking at restoring group policies. So what we're looking at is this: peradventure you have a group policy, and this group policy you deleted it mistakenly, or you deleted any of the actions that you've created and you want to restore. How exactly are you being able to restore back all this configuration? So we'll be going through all this today. However, apart from what I mentioned that we're going to be discussing, we're going to also talk about two major things before we go into real practical. Now, what exactly am I talking about? I want us to look at, when we're talking about centralized group policy, via the organization, how you can apply a group policy across board. Then we're going to be looking at logo group policy. I make mention of it in brief, but now we're going to stretch it a little bit to have a full understanding or full appreciation of group policy as a whole. So when we're talking about a centralized group policy, what exactly are we talking about? Now, like I told you, when we're talking about centralized group policy, your mind should always go to group policy within a domain setting. Okay, if you're using a Windows computer in an Active Directory environment, group policy settings can be defined in the domain controller, which we are aware of. Now, network administrators or system administrators have one place where they can configure a variety of Windows settings for every computer on the network. So meaning that if you're using a group policy, you can set a configuration that is applicable across board and not limited to a single machine. These settings can be enforced. And when I mean enforced means I want to ensure that every user can do this that I've configured and they cannot change it. For example, if I'm using a group policy, right? In a group policy, a network administrator can block access to some certain sections of Windows control panel or set a specific website as the home page for every computer on the network. Now, what I'm saying is this: I open the browser, I might say by default, when users open the browser, what I want them to see first is crossword STC website. Not any other thing, not Google, not Yahoo. I want what is going to come up when they click on the browser is to be this. So you can use group policy to have that configuration set on your Internet Explorer across board. Okay, so these allow you don't have to individually go to those computers. You can just apply once. And that is it. It's going to run on all those computers. Now, this configuration, it can be helpful also for locking down computers. Okay, you can use it to restrict access to a specific folder or control panel applets and application. It can also be used to change a variety of Windows settings, including the one that cannot be changed from the control panel or required a registry tweak to change. So you could do all this at that level, whereby if they're trying to do anything, a restriction dialog box is going to come out. It's going to restrict them, telling them that they do not have access to be able to do that particular action they're trying to trigger, that they should contact the system administration. Okay, many group policy settings change registry values in the background. So as you're applying it, it's changing in your registry. So whatever is in your registry is what the computer works with. In fact, you can also see which registry values a group policy settings change. However, when you look at group policy, you provide a more user-friendly interface and the ability to enforce settings across board. Okay, the floor is open for a minute. If you have a question or not, before we go into a local group policy and then go into configuration for the day. So the floor is open for a minute or two. If you have any question, if anything is unclear about what I've said so far, before we proceed.
No question from my side for now.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so every other person, I assume no other questions. Well. Big?
Question.
Oh, no question, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So let's proceed. Okay, now when we're talking about local group policy, what we've talked about, so sometimes when you hear, like I said, if you hear central group policy or they just say group policy, always assume they're talking about, group policy on the domain level. For local group policy, people are always being specific when they tell you local group policy. So we're going to talk about local group policy now. So when you hear about it or you're trying to do something, you know at what level you should apply. Now, when you're talking about group policy, local group policy, in this situation, the group policy is not only useful for network of computers in businesses or schools or whatsoever place you want to configure. Okay. However, if you are using a professional version of Windows, you can use the local group policy editor to change a policy settings on your computer. Like I said, on your computer, not on the global computer, not on the network computer, on your computer. Using a group policy, you can tweak some Windows settings that are not normally available from the graphical interface, right? What I'm saying is that there are some particular settings that you can do. You cannot do it within the graphic setting. What you see is what you get. I move my mouse here, I click here, I make these changes. In the registry, you can do the tweak. With the group policy, you do the tweak, and that's it. It's just going to work as you want it to be. You don't have to wait for anything at any point in time. And what exactly I'm saying is this, for example, if you want to set like a custom login screen in Windows 7 or Windows 10 or whatever it is, you can either use a registry editor or use a group policy editor. It is easier. You can make a change, and the group policy editor will make a change to it. So meaning that for settings, you can use a local group policy, or you can also use your registry, and you can combine both to achieve what you're looking for. Okay. So you can also tweak other areas, of your client operating system, either being a Windows 7 or Windows 10 with a group policy editor. Okay. For example, you can hide the notification area and say, I don't want this to show up anymore. Everything exists. You just need to make a change. And this can only be done, like I said, through the policy or through a registry. The local group policy editor, can also be used to lock down a computer, just as you would lock down a computer on the enterprise network. This can be useful if you have children using computer. And what am I saying? I'm trying to say that you can allow user to run specific program, and you can restrict access to specific drive or enforce users to users account password requirements, meaning that I can set the kind of parameters for their passwords, who can access, and when they access my computer, what and what can they do, just like what I told you guys the other time. And you can also apply what we call restrictions on those computers, okay? And what I'm saying is this: I'm going to give you the commands. I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to give you commands that you can use to call up the local group editor, which is different from, the normal group policy management. So let me share my computer. Okay, so I'm sharing my computer now. And if you want to go into a local group policy, all you need to do is just to type what we call a GP edit.msc. Okay, you see that it looks, you click on it and it's going to show you a policy. And if you look at it very well, for you guys that have been working on that policy with some of my classes, you will see that by the time you create a group policy object and you edit it, this is the same kind of environment you see. But this is just, a restriction only on this computer, not the one you do through a domain controller or through a group policy management or through a central domain. All what I've just said now is the same thing. I'm just using different names, to qualify it. So this is what you're going to see when you create an object. You're going to see two things. You're going to see the computer configuration and you're going to see what the user configuration. And what this means is that if you need to configure anything pertaining to computer, you're going to use the computer settings. But if you want to limit that setting to a user, you limit it to user. You will see that both of them have the same thing, but there's one that is user driven and one is computer driven. When you say user driven, it means that if two persons or two users are logging into a computer, one is an administrator and one is just a domain user, and there is another users relating to probably sales, and I say, okay, these three set of people uses this computer. I want my setting to be applicable only to Samuel, which is part of the admin group, and also Kanishika, which is part of the IT group. But I don't want these settings to be applicable to Usna, who is in the IT department. Now, I can now say, okay, per user, I am setting this per user. So they will all be using the same computers, but they will have different settings that is applicable to them once they log in. So that's what group policy is all about. So many people might be using one computers, but doesn't mean that they are bounded by the same policy. You can change the kind of policies that is applicable to users that are going to be using the computer. But if you apply the settings to a computer, regardless of who is logged into that computer, the policy will always take effect on all of them, not just one person, but all of them that uses that computer. Okay, so that is what group policy it's all about. That is what it can do. So from there, we'll start taking, start working on each of those exercises and see what exactly we can achieve from it. Now, we're not going to be using the local policy for now, okay, but I'm still going to show you at the end of the class some certain settings that can be done locally. So now we have to go to one of our domain controller. As we already know that we have two domain controllers. We have DC1 and we also have DC2, which DC2 is serving as a failover for the DC1, okay? So the floor is also open again for one or two questions before we go into our domain controllers and start making a lot of changes. So the floor is open. Yes.
Yeah, no questions from me.
Okay, so logging into our domain controller. I hope you guys can see the screen. I hope you guys can see the screen. I can't see anyone.
I can see it. If it is full screen, that would be much better if it is possible.
You saw what?
I can see it. It is a little bit small, but still I can see it. But
Yeah, let me see if I can switch the screen to the other one. Hold on. I'm trying to switch to another screen. So 2, looking for screen 3. Okay, let's move to screen 3 and see if it's going to be better. That's it. Is it better? Is it better?
Well, it's the same, but it's okay for me. It's fine.
Okay. Okay. Let's use it. Let's manage it the same way we're managing it. Okay. Okay. Just I can't RDP from my normal machine because we're using a different network, so it's not on the same network as my network, and I don't want to run any of today's settings on my corporate network. Okay, so let's manage it. So what we're gonna do first of our practical today is we want to map drive. Remember when we did the last mapping of drive? What we did was we created we had a group or we selected some users. We created a folder, we shared the folder, we copied the path and we went to the user's account and we attach it to their profile. And when they log in, they see it. So what we're going to be doing today is going to be a bit different. Rather than picking all the users in the corporation and adding them one after the other, to a particular settings, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to create a folder. We're going to share that folder. And that folder is going to be applicable to everyone within the organization. So before we start, like I always show you guys, I want you to look at the environment. So by the time we're doing our configuration, you have an appreciation of what we've done. So if you click here, you see what we have. We have the test folder. We have drive E as well, that tells you what and what is inclusive of it. Okay, so we're gonna move further from there. What's in here? Hold on. Test. Oh, okay. We restricted the numbers of we restricted the number of space within there. So let's do what we have to do. So you guys see here, there's nothing here. So what we want to do is that we want to create a folder, and that folder we want to call it public, and that public folder we want to share it. So I'm going to go to drive C. Okay, then I'm going to create a folder here. So meaning that I'm going to be right clicking here. I'm going to create a folder. And I'm going to call the folder public. Call it public. So we say PULC. Oh, sorry, it's not typing. So we have PU. What's going on? Okay, so we have the folder. Then I'm going to share the folder. Under sharing, then go to advanced settings. And share the folder, and we apply. No, it's not doing what I wanted to do. That's not what we're doing. So we're sharing not drive C, but we want to share public. Public. Go to sharing, then we say sharing. Okay, so we have this, but we're going to add one more and say domain users. Okay, then we say find, and we say all domain users. Search. We apply to it. Okay, and then we say share. So remember this path. So we can also copy the path. So I can copy this path off, which is the folder we just created. Okay, then we say close. So for me to remember, I'm going to put it on the notepad. What's going on? Sorry, it didn't copy, so let me do it again. Copy. Okay, so now we have the folder, we have the path to the folder public that we just created. So now we want to ensure that any computer you log into, user will have access to this folder and they can drop content into this folder. So what we want to do, we're going to close this, then we're going to call up our group policy management, which you can just type GPO group policy and you click on group policy management there. And you can also call it up by going to your server manager and you go to your tools, then you can click on group policy management. So either which way you want to go in. Okay, so we have our group policies. From here, you will see that we have quite a number of group policy. So the policy we want to create now is we want to ensure that the folder we're creating is available to everyone, including the domain controller computers, including all computers we have within the organization. And when you have to do that, where here in the left panel do you think we're going to create the group policy object? The question is open to anyone. Where do you think we're going to create it? Assuming you want to create a group policy that is applicable across board, regardless of the organizational unit, regardless of where the computer is, you want the settings to be applicable to everyone. Where here from the left panel are you going to create the group policy objects?
From group policy objects, you need to create it from there, then you can.
Where? Which one? Just give me a name.
Policy. Yeah, group policy object, right click.
Yeah?
No, group policy object down under domain control.
That will say you have to, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Remember that if you do it here, it's
you have to create it, then you can link it here.
Okay, but what if I just don't want to start linking? I just want to peg it wherever it is. Where here do you think I can do that?
So if you want to apply it on
if I don't want to do it here and start linking up, and I just want to apply at a particular level, what you've said is correct. You can create it there, then you link it to wherever you want it. But I'm saying, if I don't want to do it that way, I just want to do it straight. Where am I going to apply it?
Where you want to apply, like which folder, where exactly? Computers, users, cross lab classes. If you want to put it on crossword lab classes, you can create it there. And if you want to put it on domain, then you can put it on lab.local. I mean, you can create it on.
That's the answer I'm looking for. I want it across board, meaning that I don't want to do it because if I put it under crossword lab class, it's not going to be applicable to my domain controller objects, the computers there. So what I want to do is I want to apply it here so it can take effect on the crossword lab class and also take effect on the domain controller organizational unit as well. You understand now? The latter answer that you gave is what I'm looking for, create at the lab.local. Do you understand now?
Yes, but if we create under group policy object, then we can link it to lab.local. So
yeah, that's correct as well. I told you when you said that, I said it is correct. But what I just want to do is assuming I don't want to link it after creating. I just want to put it there once and for all where. So the answer is under lab.local. But like I told you, I said you can also still create it under domain. You can also still create it under your group policy object. Then you can link it to the lab and it will still do the same thing. You understand? That's double work. I don't want to do it. That's why I see that the question was clear. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, Samuel.
Yeah, so when either they ask questions in interview or you're going to the exam, always be conscious of the wordings and underline the wordings. Sometimes your answer might be right, but the way you put it might just, it's just jumping around. You understand what I'm saying, right? So you always underline those key notes that is expected from the questions. But thank you very much. You gave us more than we expect of an answer, and it's good. So we learn different ways at which it can be done, okay? So we're going to create it here under lab.local. And we're going to right click here and say create a GPO in this domain and link it here. So what we're trying to do is a public folder sharing. Most times when you're creating your group policy object, always give it a name that when you go to your group policy management, you understand what has been done at each of the levels. Some set of people are not used to giving a very good name. They just title it as anything. So by the time they have a lot of policies, it becomes difficult for them to understand what they've done. So what we want to do, like I said, is to have a public folder available to all users across board. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give it a name and call it public folder. So in case I come to my group policy management next time, I'll be able to know what each one of them is doing. I'm going to say public folder sharing. That's the name I'm going to call it. Then I'm going to say, okay. So once I have it here, I'm going to click on it. Okay. And I'm going to say, okay. So it's going to open the platform for us. Now, what I want to do is to right click here and I want to edit it because we need to configure what we have there. So now remember, when we did the local group policy by using the GP edit, it gives us the same thing like this. But the only difference is that you see here is telling you what? It's telling you where you're connected to. This lab-dc-this then -log 01. So like I said, all the settings we want to do is not applicable to the computer, but it's applicable to the users within the company. We want when a user logs in, the user we have access to, or all users we have access to the public folder. So what we're going to do, I'm not configuring this on the computer configuration, but I'm doing it for the user user configuration. So all I need to do is to open the user configuration and go to preferences. When I go to preference, I need to go to Windows settings. Okay, then we'll see drive map. So I click on drive map. The system is going to give you this platform for you to configure what you want. So what we're going to do is that we're going to right click here and we're going to click on what? Map drive. If you guys remember, you see that we've done something relating to this before, but just that in different way. So now there are different actions here, just in case you want to create a new one, you want to replace an existing shared folder, you want to update or you want to delete. So what we want is that we want to use an update. So meaning that anytime a user logs into a machine, if the part or the folder does not exist, always update the account and create it for users to be able to have access to it. The first thing you want to do is that what folder are you trying to map? So remember that when we share that folder, we use this. So I'm going to copy this out and I'm going to paste it here, which serves as the location that we have our shared drive. Now the system will now ask you, do you always want a reconnection? Taking an example, you're connected to a drive within a computer, then the system restarted, or the server that is housing the folder files and folders you're working with restarted. You want a situation by when the server comes back, excuse me, you can reconnect to that machine. So that server that is housing the shared folder of file. So you're going to click here to always want to reconnect. Then you might want to label it and say, hey, I want people to know what this folder is all about, not just having that folder there. So all you need to do, you need to put a label. So what kind of label? So we can now say, I want to label it as what? As public folder. So when people see it, they know what it is for. So public folder, okay? Then you have option to specify what kind of drive letter do you want. Okay, you can say use the first available, meaning that every system might have a different drive letter. Sometimes, most times it's always good so that because a lot of people have used different drives on their machine and you don't want to, override or cause a conflict when you specify specific ones, right? So for this class, we're going to be saying use a particular letter. But if I will advise you when you're working at a place of work, don't always use a particular letter. Always try to tell the system to use the first available one. Meaning that anytime they log in, it's going to check which one have they not used and it's going to apply the first available one. Rather than, an existing drive letter exists and you're trying to do. Majority of the people that will always say use the available one or specify, no, they always use to specify drive letter. Probably they've done it at the beginning before people start using their computers and all. So most times there's not going to be conflict on the kind of drive letter that they'll be working on. So, but for the purpose of this class, I'll be saying use a drive letter, and I'm going to specify the drive letter that I want. So I can say, okay, I want you to use I. So anytime any user logs in, the shared folder, which is public, is going to be having a drive letter indicated as I here. So once this is done, just apply it, okay, and click OK. Now we've created that part. All you need to do is to close it. The first thing you want to do if you want it to apply immediately is you can run what we already know as our group policy of GP update, your enforced GP update, so you can take cognizance immediately. So you can say GP updates, okay, /force, and you run it, allow the system to run to apply the policy. So once it's done, we're going to check this domain controller itself. Then we're going to check one of the client machines to see if what we've done is effective or not. So let's go to our folder here and see if it's created. We go to this PC, and you can all see it here. Okay, this is saying public folder, and it's using what? Drive I, which is what we have specified. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to test one of the client machine. This is one of the client machines. Okay, it's called CTS-test-01. Let's try to log into the machine and see if the folder will be created. Okay, so I'm going to log in as Philip John. I guess I still remember the password. Okay, and I say enter. So let's go to our folder and see if it's there. If it's not, we're just going to run GPO updates and see. So we go to this PC, and it's not here yet. So, because we just created. So what we can do is we can just run GPO updates. And what organizations do most times is that they always configure what we call a scheduled task, where the system, after every 1 hour or 30 minutes, will automatically run the policy by itself. So you don't need to individually go to each machine and run policy, for them. So the system is just going to do it. That's the whole essence of task scheduler. It's part of the advanced class. We're going to be looking at it for some of you or all of you that will be going into the advanced class. So, I'm just going to run GPO updates. /force. So while we're working at it, let's just see here. We're just going to enter it and see what happens. It's not going. So it's running the policy. If it doesn't show, we're just going to restart the computer, and then we're going to see what happens. But hopefully it shows, so let's see. Okay, the policy run. Let's go out. I'm probably going in again. Okay, it's not showing yet, so we're just going to restart the computer. We don't have a lot of time to wait, so let's just restart the machine, and by the time it comes up, because what always happens is that when you restart the machine, the policy takes effect immediately, because when you log in, the system is going to check with the registry, it's going to check with the group policy to see new settings that is applicable to the machine. That's why sometimes if it's taking too long, you just restart the machine. But like I said, in corporate settings, you cannot restart someone's computer just like that. You just have to wait. They just have to tell them to be patient. Like I said, when it comes to configuration, it takes a little bit of time for replication to take place, so you have to watch out for that, okay? So the system is restarting itself, and when it comes up, we're going to check it. So while that is ongoing, the floor is open. Please, if you want to ask a question, you're trying to understand the difference of this one and the one we did in the previous class, just to be able to understand what major difference, that occurred, then I can show you if that is the question. But, the floor is open for question pending when the system comes out.
Samuel, if you create a folder on domain controller, so and we share this folder and give right to domain controller, I mean domain users, they can access to this folder. So if we log in as a domain user, still we will have access on that folder. So it is somehow the same thing, right?
Yes, it's the same thing, but just that the one we did before, we specify specific users that will be able to have the shared folder, and also those people that will always we have the one that consigns them by having individual shared folder rather than the one available for everyone. So once they log into the machine, the system is going to bring it out as part of the folder they can add or remove from, depending on the privilege. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So it's the same thing. So if you want to share, we can do it that way, or if we want to apply GPO, then we can use GPO.
Yeah, the essence of GPO is that you just want it across board, so which makes it easier. But if you do it on just the domain controller, they're not going to have access to it. The only reason they will have access to it is if you share with them the path. You remember when I told you guys that when you have a path, you can map a drive directly on your machine. Yeah, meaning that it's not applied to everyone. So they only give specific users. So instead of organization giving path as well, they can create it and use GPO to assign it to individual users. What organization do most times is that, oh, I need access to this part. They're going to send you the part. It just means that either someone does not know their job or they don't know what to do. So most times when they share it, they just give it out. And some of them don't know how to configure it. I've worked in different organizations, and sometimes they'll share a part, and rather than mapping it to your account, and it comes up when you're trying to use it, they'll give you the part so you map it yourself. So when you click on this folder, let's check it again, and we go to this PC. Can you see here? It's all showing now as public folder on the Windows 10 machine. Okay. Can you guys see it? Can you guys see it? Okay, so that is the folder that we just created now. So we can see on Windows 10 machine, we can see on server. So anybody that logs into it, they'll be able to have access to it. And if I open it and copy a file there, by the time I go into the server, I'm going to see the same file. It's not, I know it's not the same thing as it's not the same thing as replication, right? That we did the last time, but this is also that there's a shared folder and you know what you can do in the shared folder. So you say you need a permission or action. Now the reason why it's saying like this is they have a read-only permission. Okay, that is why that it is. And what I'm saying is this: if we come to the folder that we created itself, which is under drive C, public. If you right click and we go to properties, if you go under security, you will see the permission that is assigned to domain user. You see domain user can only what? Read and execute. They cannot write. So if you want them to be able to write to it, which was the reason we're having issue here, I'm trying to create a file here, and it's telling me that what? I need the permission to do that. So all I need to do, if I want to do that, is you know, on our domain controller, we're just going to change the permission that we've given to a domain user. So we can edit it and say, for domain users, I want them to be able to what? To be able to write to it as well. Okay, and they can modify, but I don't want to give them a full control. So I can say apply. So I just applied changes to that folder. So if I go back to here, my Windows 10 or any of the folder, and I try to create an account, a file now, it should allow me. Can you see it? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's it. So it depends on the kind of permission. What most organizations do most times is that when they create a public folder, because it is not your individual folder, they want you to just be able to read information out and not to be able to edit or create anything. So you don't change the information that already exists within that platform. So that is what, you know, it's all about. Okay, so we're going to be looking at another one, which is called private mapping. Okay, private mapping is when you want a user like admin to have access to a particular file. I remember that what we did the last time was we didn't say, because again, sorry, let me take a step back. What we did the last time was after creating the general folder, which we call for training room, we created another shared folder and say, hey, anytime Sam being logged into the machine, create a storage for Sam. So if he needs to back up his file, let it back it up in its own folder, in its own shared drive. Okay, when Paolo logs in, let Paolo be able to save into his own shared drive. Whatever Samuel saved, Paolo doesn't save it because it's not a general folder. So the system automatically created it. That's what we did in our previous class. But in this class, what we're doing is that we'll create a folder. That folder will not be specific to anyone, but any member of that group will be able to add or remove files from it. Okay, but it's not going to be available to anyone. So only those people that you assign it to will be able to see it, but not to a specific, not created as a personal shared file. I guess what I titled that one that we did was personal shared folder. So meaning that Sam has his own folder, Palo has his own folder, same as everyone in the group, and we did the one for general. So now what we're going to do now is that we want to create another folder, and we want only specific people to always use it. We don't want the system to always show it when people are trying to log in to look at the shared folder. And what do I mean by that? This machine now on the domain controller, if I come here and I say // and I type the name of the computer, the system will tell me all the shared folder that exists on this machine. Okay, this is what we have. If I create another one and I hide it, it's not going to show here, but it exists. So how do you hide a folder? Does anyone remember how you create a shared folder and it's going to be hidden? Does anybody remember how that is done?
Yes, you add $sign at the end.
That's good. Any other person has anything contrary or an addition?
Nope.
So we all understand what Kanishka just said, which is good. So on drive C, we're going to create another one, and we're going to call it let's call it admin folder, admin_folder. Okay, and let's share it before we do any other thing. So we're going to share. Yeah, there are three things that we're going to do. Number one, we're going to create a folder. Number two, we're going to create a group of users that we want them to have access to it. And number three is that we're going to use GPO to deploy it. So we're going to create here, then we say properties. Let's do a share. So we're going to let's go to advanced sharing rather than normal sharing. We go to advanced sharing. And the difference is that when you go to sharing, it allows you to share, then you have to go to advanced again. So we're just trying to bypass a lot of things. So you click here, then here I'm going to add a $sign to it. Okay. Then we're going to go to permission. And here we're going to remove everyone because we don't want everyone to have access to the folder. Okay. Okay. Before we complete this, let's do something. Let's leave it as it is now. I'm not going to close it. Let's go to our user and group on the Active Directory user and computer and create the group so we can apply the group here. So what I'm trying to do is this. We have a staff. Let's create a group. That's when I say create a group, we want to create a group account that has a member, and all these members are the only people who want them to have access to this machine. So we come here and then we say create a group, and we call the group, let's say, I told you also have to be mindful of the names you use so you understand what it does. Because when you create anything, after 6-7 months or 3 months, you might not remember what it does if the name is not clear. So we have group, which is our CRP, and we say administrator, only administrator we have access to this. Then we say okay. So we created it. So who exactly do you want to make an administrator? So we can come here under admin. We have this, so we can push this to it and say add to a group. So we can type GRP_admin. Okay, so we add this user to it. Every other person, let them be a user. Okay, so that will allow us to know the difference of what we're trying to work on. So if I come here and I check the member, you will see only one person there. Members. So you see this, but equally, okay, let's make it fun. Let's add two. I can decide to add my, let me add part into it. Add to group, and say GRP_admin. Okay, both of them are part of the group. So now if I click here and I say show properties and I go to members, you're going to see members that are using. So both Tom and AD join, and say okay. So now let's go back here and let's add the user that we want them to have access to it. So we're going to say add, and we'll say only GRP_administrator. So rather than adding individual users, you've already specified this group. So all you need to do is anytime you add user to that group, they will automatically inherit the configuration that you've done. Now, I don't want this user to only read. I want them to be able to read. I want them to be able to change, and I want them to have total control. So I'm just going to say full, and we'll say apply. So anytime users in that account log in, they will see the folder. Any other person logs in, they're not going to see the folder that we're trying to create. So we click on apply, then we say okay. So if you come here, we're going to copy like we did the other time, the path for this folder, and we're going to put it on a notepad so we can make use of it. Okay, then we minimize this and we say, okay, because we've already worked on security already. So if we come here, security, that is already there already. Anyway, we already add the users they're going to have access to in terms of permissions. So we can decide to remove this, this user, okay, and this I can remove. So let's add domain user to it because that's the whole essence of what we're trying to do. Check. So anybody that is a member of the domain will be able to have access to it, and every what's it called? Every administrator as well will be able to have access to it. Domain user. Okay. Yep. So okay. So we say okay. So this is the folder. So all we need to do now is to go to GPO and we'll repeat the same thing that we did the other time. The same process, but now just the parts of the share is what is making it different. And who is going to have access to it because we already specified. So only those people will be able to have access to it. Okay. You know what? Let us not complicate matter. I'm going to let me remove the domain users. Let me remove this. Edit, domain users. Let's leave it like this and let's see what happens. Okay. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go to my policy. Yeah, so we're going to create another one. We'll use this existing one. So we're going to create a new one. Let's say apply here. Okay, and let's say create a new policy, and we're going to call it, we can say administrator share. Administrator shared folder. Say okay. Okay, then let's click on it. Edit. Then we do the same thing. Okay, we go to users, we go to our preference, we go to our Windows settings, then we go to our map drive. Okay, then we're going to create and say new. Then here, what we need to do is to put the path. Okay, so we're going to put here. Okay, then we say we connect and we can label it and say administrator folder. Then we can use a drive and we can give it a drive F. Okay, then we're going to apply it and say okay. Now you will see that when I log in, even the domain control, the account we use as a domain controller is not supposed to have access to the folder. Okay, so just click here, then close it. Okay, then we run here and we run our group policy GP update /force, and let's see what happens. Okay, it's run successfully. We check the folder, we go to this PC. You see it is here, but I can't do anything. You see that it doesn't have a bar. You see what it said? It said you do not have the permission to access this. Can you see? Can you guys see it? This user, this user is an administrator, but it is not part of that group, so it doesn't have access to it. So if I close it and I go back to my Windows 10 machine, for example, and go to this PC and we run the same GP, let's see if it's going to take effect. So say this, okay, then we say we run a GP update /force. Let's see what happens.
It is there. It is there.
Okay, that's smart of you to see that. So you see it's there, but the user cannot use it because this user that is logged in, if we say, who am I? He's saying I'm PJ, right? Which is Philip Johnson or Philip John. It's not part of the user. That's why you see that, it's not giving us the size of what it is. But if we switch the account to one of the accounts that we have, which is part-tom, we use part-tom and domain admin join. So if we say, for example, sign out this account, and let's sign in with one of the users that have access to it. We'll click here and they'll say, no, we come here and we change it as PT, right? And the password is X at 12345 6. Then we go in. So now we're logging as part Tom. Let's see what happens. If it's going to give part Tom the, the size of the file that is being shared and for him to have access to it. Then I will, you guys, by the time I'm going to show you, I want you to think how it looks like when we did a private map drive and this one. I want you to think and tell me something that is different that you can see from both. Where you are not a user, you see that it's good. When you are not assigned to the group, you will see the shared folder, but you cannot see what is inside. And tell me if you remember. And I'm not holding on anyone. We're just not sharing. You can give it a shot. When we did the one we did and specified link it to a particular person, how it looks like. So you will be able to understand differences of what we've done from now and the last one. So if I click on folder and I go to this PC, can you see, where is it? You see admin folder, you see that it's showing what is inside. It is showing me something and I can open it as well because this user have access to the folder. If I switch account again and switch back because it's open, rather than signing out, and let's see if it's going to allow us to switch account. Okay, let's see. Hold on. Switch user. Let's switch account and see if we use PJ now. If the same folder as it's opened on PT is going to show. So we go to PJ, then we use S at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is another account. Let's go to folder and let's go to this PC. Can you see that it's not having it? Even though we did not sign out from the other one, but it has access to the public folder. But here, it's not telling him what is there and he cannot open it. It's going to give error. So now from this that you've seen, when it comes to restriction, okay, before the question, let's go back to lab DC-1. I told you that if everything is shared, you're supposed to see it only when it doesn't have a $sign. So let's go to the root and click here. You will see that the admin folder is not here because you've put a $sign to hide it from a public view. So my question, anybody that knows, and like I said, I'm not holding anything against anything. What do you think is the difference from the way the folder show when you restrict who can access it as against what we did when we dealt with private folder where only people that is added sees the folder? Does anybody know what is different? Give it a shot or don't hold back, just speak. I'm not holding you to anything.
Here, I think here everyone can see it, but they don't have access. But the previous one, only those who are who are assigned to have private share folders. Those who could see that.
Send me the kind of food you like for dinner, then I'm going to have it delivered later today. You hear what I said?
No, what you said?
I say send me a message on the kind of food you like from Skip the Dish or Uber Eats. They're going to deliver to your doorstep today after the class.
Why? Today's my birthday?
No, because you got my answer right. That's the right answer.
Thank you. Today I'm not hungry, then I will keep it here. And
no, it's only available. It's only available today. So that's it. That is a very good answer, honestly. If the one we did when it comes to personal shared folder, only people that you've assigned the script to are the people that will see it. But in this situation, it is public, even though it is meant for administrator. They can see it, but they cannot access it. They don't even know the size of the drive that you've shared. That is the difference from what we've done now and what we did before. That's why I said that we've done some of them before, but by the time you start looking at it, you'll realize that there are a little bit of changes that occurred between it. Thank you, Kanishika. So we're going to go on break now for 15 minutes. Then we're going to be back. think through all what we've done. Then when we come back, if you have any question, we pick from there. But if it's not, we're going to proceed into other configuration. We still have quite a number of configuration that needs to be done. So we do that when we come back. Okay, everyone?
Yep, thanks.
Okay, so be back by 4 o'clock. Okay?
All right.
So I'm going to stop recording now.